Welcome, Congressman Kinzinger. Thank you so much for joining us on this ASP chat.
Yeah, it's great to be with you. Thanks.
So today we are going to be talking about the investigation into the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Let's just jump right in. The House Republican leadership chose not to appoint members to the committee because they believed it would, quote, pursue a partisan agenda. So as one of the two Republicans serving on the committee, do you share those concerns, and has it been partisan thus far?
Well, I mean, you don't want it to be partisan. And I think that's one of the big reasons that both Liz Cheney and I decided to go on it, because we can't let this opportunity pass to get to the truth. And keep in mind, we were going to do this, completely nonpartisan commission with former members to take it out of politics. And my party rejected that. So no, I don't think it has been partisan. And I'll tell you, with my Democratic colleagues I'm working with, they're focused just like we are on getting to the truth and not playing games with this.
What's been the scope of the committee's investigation so far, and what are its overall goals?
So our overall goals would be to hold people accountable, tell the story. Obviously, we don't have law enforcement authority, but we can put that story out there. We can refer things to the Department of Justice, getting into everything from how did we get to this point, who was involved in actually January 6th, the disinformation, the Capitol response to it. All of that is on the table, including and especially the Pentagon as well. But there's going to have to be there's a lot of conversations that still need to happen to get to that. And here's, for me, what I think is most impactful and important. We're going to produce our report when we do. A significant amount of Republicans may still believe that it was Antifa behind January 6th. There's not a lot you can do to really change that mind. What matters is what the history books in 5 and 10 years say. And, particularly for a younger audience, which is watching, I want your history books. I want your kids someday to be able to have an accurate representation of what happened so they can live in a democracy that works.
The committee recently issued subpoenas to compel witnesses to testify from some individuals like Steve Bannon. What are the consequences for individuals who do not comply with that subpoena? And also, how is it going to change the investigation if you aren't able to speak with certain people?
Well, I mean, obviously, there are levels of resistance that can happen. Resisting subpoenas, that buys time for some of these folks. You can come in and you can plead the fifth. The fifth, obviously, is your constitutional right, but, there's a lot of things that come with that, like, what are you hiding? The bottom line, though, is there are a lot of people out there besides just the kind of big names you see, people that have been around them that know what they know. We're already talking to some of those voluntarily. Many of those, if they're subpoenaed, won't resist it. But I think the bottom line to keep in mind, Congress actually has the power of a court. So we have the ability to subpoena, just like a court has an ability to subpoena. If you ignore a subpoena from Congress, just like with a court, you can be held in criminal contempt. And that's what we're doing with Steve Bannon. There are 2 other contempt things. You can have civil contempt, and you can also have what's called inherent contempt, which is where we basically send our sergeant of arms out to arrest somebody. We have to update our rules to do that, and it hasn't been done in 100 years. But we do have a lot of tools in our toolkit. I think the thing to keep in mind, this is very different than any other investigation. Whether it was Benghazi or Fast and Furious, this was an attack on the seat of democracy, and we'll use every tool to get to the answers.
Donald Trump is suing the committee and the National Archives to prevent the release of records pertaining to the attack, claiming executive privilege. What is executive privilege, and do you think it applies in this committee's investigation?
So executive privilege pretty much historically has held to a current administration, and the current administration can make the call on whether that applies in a moment. And it basically says the executive branch has a right to, some private communications and all that kind of stuff. In this case, it does not apply to the prior administration because the Biden administration has held that they're not going to defend executive privilege, but also a lot of this stuff is related to campaign, which doesn't fall under official kind of White House business. So my interpretation of the former president's lawsuit is that he's trying to stall, trying to buy time. And as we all know the only thing he really cares about is, if he looks like he's fighting. And I think that's all he's trying to do, but he will have no grounds to hold on that.
Well, Trump's lawyers called this a political ploy and said that the request for those records could potentially expose confidential and privileged information. Can you just tell us what specific records is the committee seeking access to? And does the ex-president have any concerns that are valid?
You can have a valid concern if you think that our goal is to simply embarrass him. That's not the goal. And frankly, that's not even a valid concern. We've requested, I would say, almost everything that would be related to, internal communications of different agencies, which, by the way, this isn't the committee asking for this. This is the American people through Congress asking for this. And the reason we have archives is so the American people have access to this kind of thing. And so anything related to what was quote unquote archived in the prior government is what we're requesting that's relative to this. It's broad. It's a lot of stuff. We've already gotten some things from some areas, but obviously we'll have to have a fight, and that'll just simply buy time until we get it. Keep in mind too, look, you can try to resist, you can try to say that it doesn't count, but we live in a democracy, a republic more specifically, where people have a right to see and hear and know things like this, and we will get to that answer.
There's a 127-page Senate report released in June that found that top federal intelligence agencies failed to adequately warn law enforcement officials about the rioters' plan to storm the Capitol. Who's responsible for security of the Capitol complex? And what do we know so far about specific security failures on that day?
Yeah, it's a really great question. So it's an archaic system. So we have a Capitol Police, which is a well-funded, well-trained police organization that defends the Capitol, defends members of Congress. But there is a Capitol Police Board. The Capitol Police Board is made up of the Sergeant of Arms of the Senate, the House, I think the Speaker, and it's kind of a political board. And, obviously in this business, politics infects everything. And so that needs to change. In terms of the specific warnings, it appears that there were failures at the intelligence level. Keep in mind, though, it's not the job of like the CIA or the NSA to be combing through social media for domestic threats. That relies on the FBI. We need answers for that for sure. We need systems in place to do that in the future. But the key is this: there were significant failures in defending the Capitol, no doubt. Why wasn't the National Guard here faster? But claiming that is the scandal, as some of my colleagues on my side do, is absolutely wrong. The truth is, it was the people that committed the crime, not those that defended to the best of their ability.
A whistleblower recently alleged that Capitol Police officers did not share intelligence with other police leadership and deliberately chose not to help some officers under attack. How credible is this report, and does the committee intend to address it?
I don't know much about the report. I've seen the top lines. We will certainly intend to address that. And, there has been real issues in Capitol Police leadership, just in me talking to Capitol Police officers, kind of rank and file, that just feel let down that day. They feel let down prior, and they've felt let down since. And that can't be the case. I mean, these are men and women that come to work to make a paycheck, but they put their lives on the line. We just had one killed recently. A guy drove into a barricade. It's a very dangerous job. And so those failures that exist, we have to address, and that will be a key component, even among all this other stuff.
Before I do this last question, I just want to squeeze this in real quick. I read a story recently about you, Congressman, where a few years ago, you saved a woman's life who was being attacked in the street by a man with a knife, and you jumped in. It's an incredible story. Everybody should Google it. It's kind of blew me away. And I just wanted to say, you've always had incredible integrity and character, and I think you are someone that has values that you are willing to potentially compromise your political future and clearly your personal safety as well. So thank you. I have enormous respect for you. I think it's important to highlight that.
Can I say something on that? And I appreciate you saying it, because I would consider myself moderate to conservative. I've got great friends that are far left liberals, anywhere in between. We've got to get to where we can respect those differences, but leaders have got to be willing to put their job on the line, right? We asked young men and women to go to Iraq, to be willing to defend this country. And I have seen and saluted bodies of fallen soldiers as they've gone by when I was at war. If we're going to ask somebody to give their life for this country, which we have to do to defend it, shouldn't we out here be willing to give up a job? I mean, you're not asking us to give up our life, just a job to do the right thing. Courage is in short supply. What I'm doing shouldn't be courageous. But you know what? I'm going to tell you, it's the next generation that's going to throw out the arguments that we used to have. We're plugged into this matrix of only have a couple of options, right? And they're going to reinvent, not the system, but reinvent the solutions and reinvent how we help each other. And that is my charge to the next generation of Americans.
Can I also just ask then, when we started this, people showed up to be on ASP because members of opposite parties, different parties, asked their counterparts to come. That's why people started showing up. Do you feel that would be harder for us if we started today? Because is there an actual divide in a way that we there's always been differences, but there's a little less willingness for people to come to the table and reach across the aisle to even have a conversation about some of these issues?
I think it would be a little harder today. I think fear infects everybody. The most compelling emotion, the most compelling human emotion is fear. It's like fundraising. You know, when you see these emails or these texts that go out, it's not like, hey, can you give me money so I can help save this country or give an optimistic vision? It's, if you don't give me money, frankly, your family's going to all die from whatever policies. If you convince a man that he's going to die, he'll part with anything, including money. And so fear has infected members of Congress who are scared of their own constituents to do the right thing. It's infected the constituents who are fearful that there's no real leadership out there and are fearful that the other side, tribes, we're in tribes now. By the way, tribes are what took Afghanistan down and the reason it's falling again. You believe that you're in your tribe, the other one's untrustworthy. That's fear. We've got to disinfect from the fear. The conversations are essential. Coming up with totally new solutions. We have wage inequality in this country. The answer isn't necessarily to raise taxes or to cut taxes. I don't know what the answer is. Somebody out there probably watching right now has an amazing idea to fix wage inequality that nobody's talked about. Same with things like climate change. That's how we get to real solutions. We have to quit being scared of each other. And so I appreciate all you guys do to have this conversation. And again, there is an undercurrent of people that are sick of the current system. We just need that undercurrent to grow and finally say we've had enough.
Last question is for you personally. What are you looking for from this investigation?
I just want the truth. You know, I grew up going to Sunday school and, you know, every probably Sunday school class, you go in, they tell you about telling the truth. That's what this country can exist on. When you have a democracy or a democratic kind of system, a republic, that the only thing that keeps that glue together is people having a basic trust in each other. If you win an election, you're the person. If you lose an election, you give up. I just want those answers because the truth is essential for the next generation that's going to be the one that saves this country. That's all I want.
Very well said. Always a pleasure.
And I want to be the next Captain America, but I'm not sure yet.
Well, you're going to have to get in line.
Put it in the chat and Chris will take, no, yeah, anyway. Congressman, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for spending some time with us and you know, good luck with that the rest of your day.
Thanks. I enjoyed it, guys. Take care.
Take care.